All right, here we are. Last hour.
Last hour.
Yep. Brian Dawson filling in for Andrew Mclain on the line on Talk 99.5, joined by my friend Barrett Gilbreth, solving all the world's problems, one radio segment at a time. And we had some callers. If you guys want to call back, would love to take those calls. Don't call in on a break. That's the advice that I would give. Oh, there's one of them. Yeah, so I've got to fulfill my promise and go into my assessment of what's happened at FedEx. I'm not super dove into all the details on this, and so this is my opinion of what I've seen. But basically, when Fred Smith died at FedEx, you're talking about freaking American Patriot, one of the greatest American companies that's ever been made. And at one time was just operating, really, really incredibly well, et cetera, et cetera. But he passes away, and an Indian fella, not Feather, red dot, Indian, takes over, and shortly after that, they basically get rid of all of their American labor and replace it with H-1B visas. Why? Well, because they come over here and are basically essentially enslaved to working more hours for less money, and that's better for the bottom line in these corporations. And so it's also something we need to keep an eye on. It's a bad deal. If Americans are getting, and I've got a whole story basically about how my dad worked for a company, and he worked there for 20 some odd years, and things got a little tight financially, and so they came in and brought a bunch of East Indians over. My dad had to train all these people, and then after he got done training them, they let my dad go because these guys came in working for less. And so that's happening all over the place, and definitely something we should be able to
Similar
talk about
to
and
the
keep an eye on.
CDL drivers right now. And they're
Oh,
talking
my
about now
gosh.
having a sort of a easy pathway for vets coming out of military service to go right into truck driving. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Mac, you're on the
Hey,
line.
guys.
Hey, brother.
Yeah. Enjoyed what I've heard. You were talking on the racism thing. If you bring up the fact, and this has been brought up by several folks, several different groups, Cambridge of Britain talked about it. The 80% of the southern plantations were run by black Muslims. 80%. Now, that didn't mean that other whites weren't involved in selling slaves, but those 80% were brutal. They were the Barbary Coast pirates. They were Muslims, and they loved to catch white Christians because they were brutal. Most 75% of what they captured and sold went to South America. And this is still in the Library of Congress. Most of the history we have, the true history of this country, is in the Library of Congress. The Congress, since John D. Rockefeller, the Satanist, took over, they want to erase what we've got. They think that they legislated away. In other words, you won't go back and check out what they've done, and they won't go look at it themselves. Great example is that GATT legislation, 1992. They did our economy, and that includes our medicines. Wuhan was ours. They created this the COVID vaccine, which is the most dangerous thing that's ever been put out. And you still see fools going and taking that shot. It's absolutely ludicrous. And then you do the research on that, it's a disaster. But back to the racial thing, I think Sousa wrote about it. He was the chancellor of King's College. He was a professor of history. He found it out, and in one of his books, he wrote about the 80% of the southern plantations. Now, they were funded by the Rothschilds out of Britain and the Catholic Church. And the Catholics were the Jesuits at that time. They screwed this country up so bad. They basically were in it along with the British, to start the Civil War, and they did so. You got to remember, slavery was an absolute economy that had to happen. I mean, we didn't have John Deere tractors back then. Here's the other thing: all the northern homes used slaves, and most of them were blacks. And then during the Civil War, they actually dropped the Democrat Party and started a nationalist party because they were so shocked at what happened in that war. I mean, think about it: 700,000 dead. It was horrible.
Yeah.
And we have come from that. And, of course, in 1871, we changed our Constitution, which loopholed our original Constitution freedoms and liberties. So if you want to see this, go to what's the name of that? It's a group out of Britain. They're the Cambridge historians. When they saw BLM rear their ugly heads, they came out and said, "You people need to read your history, understand what's going on." And exactly true. And I have written about this on Facebook mainly. And, buddy, I get a lot of reprisal on this thing.
I think it's important for all of us. We got to get back to understanding and educating ourselves about what we are, who we are as a country, who we are as a people. I think it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we're educated.
Amen. Well, Mac, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for calling in, brother.
All right, guys. Y'all have a good day. Thanks.
Right. And appreciate that feedback there from Mac. I'm going to bounce back to the East Indian thing. So talking about they say, when corporations are pushed and why they're bringing in this cheap labor from East India, and they're like, it's top 1% of the world's talent were coming in to help us with tech. And I'm like, well, why do they own all the gas stations and hotels then? Are we sending people to the moon from Holiday Inn? Like, what about the Sunoco down the street? Because I don't see any rocket ships being built there, but I've never gone into a gas station in Alabama that was owned by a white person. I can tell you that, or an American, anything for that matter. That's always interesting. They're all named Raj Patel, but they're not really named Raj Patel, but that's how they chain migrated over here through abusing that system with the name Raj Patel. It's a whole thing. Maybe I need to bring Andrew Isker on next time I come in, and he can break that whole thing down. And then why are they just that good at running gas stations and hotels, Barrett? Is it that they're just something about their genetic predisposition that they can just load up shelves and sell gas or like work hospitality? Well, no, I think there's like SBA loans that are available to them and in that H-1B status that is not available to me and you. 0% interest loans. I wish I could get a 0%. I could run the hell out of a hotel with a 0% interest loan. And so again, it continues to be that the average American is thought of last and served last by its government, and there's all these handouts for everyone who's not us.
And I think we're getting again. I read the story about the pipeline for retired veterans to go back into truck driving. I think those types of programs are what it's going to take, because once we get through the fraud in the H-1B program and all the other chain migration things that you've talked about, I think there's going to be opportunities. There should be opportunities for Americans to do American jobs.
Amen. And then on the truck driving thing, my God. So over in Washington, it's either Washington, Oregon, and California, or two of those three states, they basically have they call them CDL mills.
Yeah.
And they're just handing these effing things out. They're just handing them out, okay? Here you go. Speak English? Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Have you ever driven a stick shift? Never driven car? Great. You too can have a CDL. And these guys are in these freaking 18-wheelers going down the interstates, just killing families, blowing stuff up. And it's like, this is not necessary. There's other people who can drive trucks that do speak English and are American. It's just, it's nuts. It's wild. I do think that there needs to be like a real, and again, as I will continue saying, when Tuberville gets here, gets here, I'm going to keep saying that because it's true. I guarantee you that Aaliyah and the Alabama Department of Transportation will be cracking down on any of these freaking foreigners who do not have merit-based CDLs coming through here, who can't speak English. There will be a crackdown, and Alabama families won't be dying on the interstate from some third world person, like cooking food with his feet and watching movies on his phone, driving an 18-wheeler. It's so freaking bad. Anyway, we're up on another break. Brian Dawson, 1819 News with Barry Gilbreth. This is The Line, Talk 99.5. We will be back. All right, we're back. Talk 99.5. This is The Line. Brian Dawson, CEO of 1819 News, filling in for Andrew Mclain on the line. Barrett Gilbreth in the studio with me, and we're going to give an ode to Fox News. And my question for Fox News is, why the hell do we continue to help people that hate us in their messaging? And what I mean by that is referring to democratic socialists as anything but God-forsaken, Christ-hating communists. And so you have the DSA and like, oh, the DSA. And I didn't even know what the hell the DSA was until I looked up at Fox News and I'm like, Google, Grok, what is DSA? Democratic Socialists of America. Like, oh, okay. And so it's like, how do we cloak this ideology that comes in and destroys a nation and takes all the means of production away and then puts people that don't know how to operate the means of production in charge of that production so that the civilization is destroyed? How do we package that? Like, we'll call it democratic socialism. That'll get them.
Well, that's their own terminology, right? I mean, they've coined themselves that way, and I think we're in such an environment where, you know, we've had all this discussion about violent political rhetoric and Democrats calling Republicans Nazis, and so I don't know if it's because the Republicans are just sort of gun shy about using honesty, and so they'll just take to the whole Democratic Socialist of America thing. And I think the interesting thing I saw, speaking of the Fox News poll, I think you were referencing, is that now that they have sort of put forth their platform, and the DSA platform is to abolish the office of the presidency and abolish the Senate, the institution of the Senate. I think the Republicans have done a decent job pouncing on that and messaging around those types of institutions being eliminated, where even independents largely hate DSA platform. And so I think that's the play right now, and you're seeing the Democrat Party going farther and farther left because they are just succumbing to the loudest voices in their party, and I think it's going to hurt them in the long run.
I hope so.
Same. Really hope so.
Yeah.
Maybe that's me being an optimist.
Yeah. You know, and the crazy thing is that everyone's like, you know, never forget, right? 9/11, never forget. 2001, here we are 25 years later, and now you've got a psychotic Muslim running New York City. How did we forget? Well, no one forgot. What's happened is that everyone left New York, and it's now been replaced by a bunch of Muslims that we've brought over here through this immigration system that I've been harping on for the last 3 hours and 30 minutes. And when you bring in a bunch of Muslims, they do this thing where they elect other Muslims. I know that's earth-shattering research I've done there. You'll see Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib did a bunch of German descent Minnesotans vote for them. No, it was a bunch of freaking Somalis that they came over, and it's like, hey, Somalis that don't speak English, you know what you guys need? The right to vote. That's what we're going to give you, as well as whatever. They didn't come over on H-1Bs. It was some other legal, right? And that's the other thing. Like, freaking conservatives, in order to fight immigration because they're scared of being called racist again, they'll be like, oh, I'm not for illegal immigration. I like that they're legal immigration. It's like, bro, legal immigration is 1,000 times worse than illegal. At least the illegals you can get rid of. You can't, I mean, you can remigrate, you can repatriate, you can get rid of them, but it's a whole nother process than just rounding up Hondurans and throwing them on a C-130 and parachuting them off into the third world somewhere. That's how I see that going, by the way. When they get on the C-130, they're like parachute and they just put boom.
That said, Brian, please illustrate for us the deportation process. And you just heard it.
Yeah, I want to animate it and play it. Like, this is how it works.
That may be a good one.
Ken the Liberal is online too. What you got, Ken?
Hey, Brian. Hey, man, I love when you fill in for some of these hosts, man. I really enjoy it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I wanted to talk about was the closed primaries and the Republicans trying to, basically bring party registration into Alabama. And as a progressive, man, I've always voted in Republican primaries. Most Democratic Democratic guys like myself do that. So, I mean, in a root red state, that's where your power is as a Democrat. So we gladly welcome party registration.
I know you do.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it. We're doing it now, but we're not doing it in the numbers that we should, because a lot of people, Democrats and Republicans, are kind of ignorant. They think they don't know that they can vote however they want in the general.
Yeah.
So a lot of them will stick with just voting in the Democrat Party in the primaries. But I tell you one thing, we have progressives that have infiltrated this ruby red state already. Yeah, and nationally as well. That's why a lot of conservatives like yourselves are dumbfounded when you can't get any conservative legislation passed. Really, you think about it. This is Trump's second term, and he hadn't really been able to get anything conservative passed. He's no conservative.
Yeah. No, he's a New York liberal, and things have
Trump.
gotten so bad that he looks conservative. I mean, if we're being honest, I mean, I love Trump, and I'm tremendously grateful for him, but the dude is not like right of Attila the Hun or something like that. No. The way he gets advertised. I mean, he's literally a guy that was in New York. I mean, I think he loves the country. I think he wants to save the country. He wants a country that's similar to what he grew up in. All of those things. But he's not like a right-wing guy, though right-wing guys are attracted to him because he's bold. But yeah, he's not a right-winger. I agree with that.
Actually, I think he's using conservatives and conservatism, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah. I voted for him when he first ran in 2016. I don't like him at all, but I think he has done a great job with moving my side forward, because he's really kneecapping the Republican Party. If you think about it, Trumpism has brought MAGA out, and MAGA's conservatives, they're true conservatives, and the Republican Party is not really a conservative party if you think about it. I love Republicans. We can deal with Republicans.
Well, I got a question. What's your favorite progressive cause?
Anything that moves this country away from being where our founders would recognize it, that's my favorite cause. So that encapsulates a lot, okay? And a lot of it is just distractions. This men and women's sports, that's a distraction. I'm glad a lot of conservatives fall for that and bite on it, because we can slowly move other social issues forward while you're focused on that.
So how would you define where our founders saw our country? You said as far away from where they saw it as possible. Where do you think they saw it?
I don't want this country, and we're succeeding in this point. You might agree with me. Progressives want this country to not be recognizable by our founders. We personally think it was founded wrong, socially, and that's what we're moving towards. A lot of the ends with us justify the means. So if it takes 100 years and we move a foot, that's fine, as long as we're moving in the direction that we want to go. The little battles don't even matter,
So you would probably say that you're anti-American?
No, I'm a veteran. I've fought for this country. I love this country. I don't like the way that it was founded, and I don't like a lot of the laws and the things that in our past that we're still dealing with today. I don't see that it was founded equitably. The Bill of Rights is a joke. This country's never lived up to that. So like I said, and we will never agree. You and I will never agree on anything. But I Scott,
you were wrong. Let me tell you where I agree with you.
100%.
Let me tell you where I agree with you. I agree with you that everything that you're saying, as far as what's going on with the Republican primaries and the strategy that progressives are taking and the success that the progressives have had because they're willing to play the slow game and all of those things, I think you're dead on the money. Ideologically, no, we're never going to agree on anything, and that's fine.
But I thank you for your service, and I appreciate you fighting for the liberties that this country stands for.
Yeah, and I appreciate you being honest. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right. We're up against another break. We'll be back. We are back. And by we, I mean me. Barrett left. He said, I got to give you 30 more minutes to go scorched earth on your own. And so I intend to do exactly that. I say a lot of unpopular things. And I guess what's weird, though, it's that I say common sense things that have become unpopular because common sense is not in vogue anymore, unfortunately, and it causes problems. And so a lot of times, I mean, you guys have heard me talk about this. One of the reasons that Andrew and I got connected is he saw that I was doing Turning Point events, Turning Point USA events, specifically the Prove Me Wrongs, where I'm going on campus. I will be on some campuses in this next upcoming fall semester. Working on those as soon as we get all those locked in. There's one that I'm really, really excited about that is locked in that we're not promoting yet. Why do you do this? After you see Charlie Kirk get shot for doing the exact same thing, and going into these things where I'm getting all these death threats and everything else, why do you do that? People ask me all the time, Brian, why do you work, 70 to 100 hours a week? Doing this, you could easily go make money with your skill set and relationships elsewhere, and just go buy a farm somewhere and just be left alone. And the answer is really simple. My why is my children. I have 7 children, 5 daughters, 2 sons, and I don't want to be on my deathbed and one of my daughters come up and say, Daddy, why didn't you do something? To me, it is unbelievably apparent that our civilization is on the brink of its end, and this is the greatest civilization that's ever existed. And everyone until like 5 minutes ago understood that there was a level of sacrifice that came with having a civilization and having these things. Our founding fathers, they wrote, they pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. They were willing to risk everything. And then it also says in the preamble, they did these things for their posterity. Their posterity. They had a generational vision and a generational view, and that's something that we lack. We're so ruggedly individualistic. We think about ourselves and our freedoms and our liberties and me, and I, and mine. We don't have a generational vision. The Bible tells us in the 5th commandment that we're supposed to honor our fathers. That's not just being nice to our dad, okay? That's honoring those who have come before us and the sacrifices that they've made. We have a duty to our forefathers. We have a duty to those who've come before us, and we also have a duty to those who would come after us, that we would live our lives in a sacrificial way, that we would do the things that are necessary in order to preserve our way of life and our civilization, to not only preserve it, but to advance it. We have a duty. And this word duty is something that our generation doesn't understand. They don't think that way, and that's from the boomers on down to my generation, I would say, because the Gen Z guys that are all rowdy and riled up right now, they're feeling the consequences of that duty being foregone and abandoned. And they're you talk to these young men, bright, brilliant young men, extremely conservative young men, and they're like, man, I can't afford to get, like, the basic things that you want to do is get married, have children, buy a home, right? And they don't feel like they can afford to get married. They don't feel like they can afford to buy a home. They don't feel like they can afford to have children because of the disastrous consequences of such selfish people for so long making the decisions that they have on an individual level, on a business level, on a governance level. That's what we've done. And so, and I think it gets into something I did want to talk to Barrett about, and we never got around to it, but I'm happy to just sit and monologue on it here. Is this idea of individualism versus collectivism. And so, we're told that collectivism is bad, and the way that we think about collectivism is bad, the normal kind of collectivism. But we've gotten so ruggedly individualistic in our individualism that we don't understand a collective duty to a place. If you're part of a church, you have a certain duty to that church. If you're part of this, if you're part of that. Well, we're Americans, and we have a duty to our nation and to our fellow Americans. And I think that was something that was more easily understood when there was a bit of homogeneity in our society. But now we're such a blob and just all these different ethnicities, religions, foreign people and everything coming in and making up this amorphous blob that is America. It makes it harder to see things through that lens. But we have a responsibility as parents to discipline our children and instruct them in a way that they won't be terrorists on society when they grow up. We're like, you can't tell me how to parent my kids. And it's like, well, if you don't parent your kids well, your kids are going to cause problems for society. And so this idea that, well, you can't tell me that, you can't tell me this, you can't require this of me, you can't require that. I think we have to get away from that kind of thinking. I think that, but again, and this gets into it, the government if we lived in a proper society, the government wouldn't be having to tell us to do certain things. Why? Because those things would be inculcated, taught, and handed down through our homes, through our churches, through our schools. And that's this idea of why you have to have a virtuous society. And as I mentioned earlier, John Adams said, this form of government, this republic, if you can keep it, as Ben Franklin said, and then as John Adams said, this system of government, this way of being, is only fit for a moral and religious people, a virtuous society. We don't prize virtue anymore. C.S. Lewis had a great quote where he says, "We bid the geldings to be fruitful." There is no prize on virtue anymore. And I can go into against capitalism too. I am very much a free market guy. I am a capitalist, but this radical emphasis on individualism, this radical this radical emphasis on capitalism, this radical emphasis on democracy, has led us into this kind of society where virtue is gone. It's all about the bottom line. It's all about the GDP. It's all about the stock market. It's all about the stockholder and the shareholder price and all of these things, where it's like, does anything matter on whether it's good or not? And I think we as a society have abandoned the idea of objective good. We've understood in the West that there is such a thing as objective goodness, truth, and beauty. We believe in the myth of neutrality now, to where it's like, well, you have your truth and I have my truth. No. What's true is true. What's good is good. What's beautiful is beautiful. You can't show me an ugly painting and say that that's beautiful, because that's how you interpret. Beauty is something that's objective. Truth is something that's objective. Goodness is something that's objective. We know what is good. We know what is right. And our, legislators and governing officials and lawmakers have a responsibility to pass laws that align with what we know is to be objectively true, good, and beautiful. And we don't do that anymore. And so anyway, I feel like I'm just kind of rambling and wandering all over the place. But I want to dive into the problem that is democracy. When I hear people talk about democracy, and even some pundits that I love, they say, that's democracy, my sacred democracy. Democracy is freaking retarded, okay? It is mob rule. It is, I appeal to the lowest common denominator, and if I can turn them out to vote, then they're going to vote for me. There's no virtue required. There's no anything. It's literally, how can we create a campaigning system that can go dupe as many people as possible into getting them to think that I'm like them so that they'll vote for me? And obviously what that turns into is like, can we actually give people welfare and then promise them more welfare? So like, we're going to give people government money and then promise them more government money if they vote for people in my party. That's what you get with democracy, okay? And so Plato in the Republic talks about 3 legitimate forms of government. He says you have monarchy as a legitimate form of government. Aristocracy is another legitimate form of government. And a republic, a representative republic, which is what we had, is a legitimate form of government. And he says when a monarchy falls, you get tyranny. When a aristocracy falls, you get an oligarchy. And when a republic falls, you get a democracy. Okay, and so we're running around talking about how great a democracy is. A democracy is a fallen republic. It means we've lost a representative republic where only people who have a stake in society should be voting. If you are receiving benefits from the government, you have a conflict of interest on your ability to choose people who will govern. You're going to be electing people to give you more free stuff. And so there's a conflict of interest. And so at one time it was white landowning males were the only people who could vote. Okay, I'm not saying we need to go back to that, but I do think that we should restrict certain people from voting. And if you could say, okay, landowners, people who pay taxes and don't receive money, like whatever it is. And they said, well, that's voter suppression. You're like, you're damn right, it's voter suppression. Abso-freaking-lutely. I want people that have no business voting. I don't want them voting, period. Okay. And you could say, well, Brian, you have a felony. You shouldn't vote. Fine. If you want to take my right to vote and then take that away from everybody else in this situation or that situation, that's fine. But right now they're literally bringing people over from third world countries and saying, you get to vote. You're just as American as me. You get to vote, right? That's democracy. When how you attain power that you can use to enrich yourselves and your friends is by winning a popularity contest that we call voting. So think about a Republican primary with 27% turnout. That's what we do here in Alabama. 27% turnout to choose the person who's going to have power to rule and govern over you. Okay? And that is how we choose the people who have power, is a popularity contest, a low turnout popularity contest. That's how we're doing it, okay? And so, when that happens, they're going to spend a ton of money on media, making them appear more popular than they really are. There's lots of other problems with it as well. And you think about what happened in Minneapolis. So let me reframe it. In order for us to have a nation that resembles anything like what we grew up and our parents grew up in, we have to remove 30 to 100 million people from our nation, okay? 30 to 100 million. There's different numbers, there's different estimates, there's different whatever. We'll just use the number 30 million. Do you know what it's going to take to remove 30 million people? Let me tell you, it is not going to be popular. It's not going to be popular to do what is necessary. And so in a democracy, the way that we're set up, we're quite literally incapable of doing what's necessary to save our nation, because doing what's necessary would be unpopular. And when the only way that you can ascend to power and keep it is by winning popularity contests, and the only way to save the nation is by doing things that are unpopular, that means you can't do what's necessary, because to do what's necessary would be unpopular, which means you would lose power. So our incentive structure on how we choose leaders and choose people in power literally cuts us off from being able to do the thing that's necessary. We were in Minneapolis. We had Tim Walz and Keith Ellison right where we wanted them. We were deporting people. We were going in. We were rounding up these Somalis. We were sending them back. This lesbian lady tries to run over an ICE agent and gets smoked. She got shot. This other absolute communist what's the word I'm looking for? Communist activist gets into an altercation with ICE. He gets shot. And we've got midterms coming up, so that was super duper unpopular. So we're going to back out of Minneapolis, and Tim Walz and Keith Ellison won, because to do what was necessary means that, okay, we don't care that those people got shot. That was unfortunate. We've got 30 million people to remove. Keep pressing forward. Greg Bovino was the guy that was the head of ICE, and then after the Minneapolis stuff, he ended up getting demoted, and he ended up stepping out, and he's no longer the head of ICE. That dude knows what it took to get this done, and we defanged him because what he was doing wasn't popular. Well, what he was doing was saving the freaking country. And in order to save the country, you're going to have to do things that are not popular. It does not sit well with the average Karen in the country, okay? But unfortunately, Karen and all kinds of other people have the ability to vote for people and put people into power. I got to hit a break. I'm going to continue having this conversation when we come back. But yeah, Talk 99.5. This is The Line. We'll be back. All right, we're back. A few more minutes here to wrap up the hour. Yeah. So, man, again, and I think because, and one of the reasons I started a media organization is that media is super powerful, man. People, it's funny, to watch boomers on Fox News, and like I'll try and engage in a political conversation with my parents or some other boomer. And I realize I'm not arguing with them. I'm arguing with Sean Hannity's talking points that were on Fox News the night before. It's that, like, and my point in that is not a shot at the boomers. What I'm saying is that media is powerful. You're literally, like, I'm speaking into this microphone talking to 10,000 people right now, okay? And I'm offering ways of thinking about things, and I'm making arguments. And if you're doing that on a mass scale, um, you're going to influence the way that people think. And uh, unfortunately, there's not a lot of sane. Now, praise God that there's been a democratization and decentralization of mass media, and you're having podcasts with 6 million, 5, 6 million followers. Tucker Carlson, Sean Ryan, all these different shows that have these massive audiences. Joe Rogan, and they are bringing in different, like, counter established narratives all across the place, and it's helping people think differently about things. But when people are taught to think a certain way, they just think that that's what it is, and it's just the way the human brain works. And so they think that it's true, and then they live their lives as though the thing that they heard was true, and then they start to make arguments and engage politically in a way that they thought the thing they heard was true, and so they throw it out there. And that's why we think the way we do about immigration is like, well, illegal immigration is bad. I'm actually for legal immigration. Legal immigration, now that's something I can get behind, not knowing that legal immigration is infinitely more damaging than illegal immigration. There's some legal immigration that's good. But a case in point here, what is all of this immigration all about? It's, if you've not aren't familiar with the Great Replacement, okay, we used to call it the Great Replacement theory. It's no longer a theory; it's just the Great Replacement. That Western nations, they're trying to eliminate white majorities in Western nations. Period. Again, Japan is full of Japanese people, China's full of Chinese people, Israel's full of Jewish people, but Western nations can no longer have founding stock people there. They have to be replaced, okay, and they have to be replaced through legal and illegal immigration. They don't care how they do it, whether they got a piece of paper that says they're American or whether they friggin' swam through or over a river to get there. It doesn't matter. What matters is that the white people are being replaced, okay? And so when we say, we've heard over and over and over and over on all our favorite media platforms that, like, illegal immigration's bad, but legal immigration, that's actually good. Well, we've been programmed to think that way, so that's what we do. And so I think that's hugely problematic. And yeah, I just encourage people to do research and think for themselves. It's hard. People have jobs, they have kids, they have all these things, and so it's tough. And so I wanted to create a news outlet that actually does that, does the research, does the things, and actually finds out things and offers different viewpoints. But kind of going with the reason that democracy is basically going to be ineffective at saving our nation is that what is necessary to save our nation is going to be unpopular. And when the only way to keep the power that you're in, so the people who make the decisions about what we need to do to save our nation, they are elected based on their popularity because we're a democracy, and that's retarded. Um, and what's required to save our nation is unpopular. Therefore, the people in power are not going to do the thing necessary to save our nation because it's not popular. I hope that's making sense. In that same vein, we have to start thinking differently. And I talked about it with Barrett when he was on earlier. Hopefully you were listening, but the kryptonite, the Achilles heel for Western, people, we'll just say white people in Western nations, which again, it's like Chinese people in China, Japanese people in Japan. Um, you know, White people in Western nations, our Achilles heel is someone calling us racist. And it's like, I'm not encouraging anyone to be racist. That's bad. That's stupid. You shouldn't do that. We should have a merit-based way of looking at things. But that's not where we are. We're actually living in Western countries with anti-white racism in all of our institutions and all of our HR policies and all of our hiring and everything else. They're literally overlooking, capable, able white people to go pick less capable, people on the intersectional ladder. But my point is, we have, if I don't encourage anyone to be a racist fascist. However, in order to save our nation, people who want to destroy our nation are going to label us racist fascists. So I feel like I have to really like mansplain this, like really, really get down and explain this. You don't need to be a racist fascist. However, if you are effective at stopping the communist onslaught and invasion of our nation by third world migrants, if you are going to stop that, you will be called a racist fascist. It's coming, and you're just going to have to get over it, okay? And this is my point that I want to drive home and really finish on, is that in order to save our nation and preserve something worth fighting for our children and the generations after them, our children and grandchildren, we should wake up every day and do whatever is necessary to fight for a future for our children and grandchildren. Okay? And if we're not willing to be called mean names, if we're not willing to be called a racist fascist or whatever mean name they call us, our children, way worse things than mean names are coming for them. Go and look at the history of any other socialist, communist, Marxist, Muslim, whatever country, Western nation that's been conquered by Muslims. How do they treat those people? It's not good. It's not good, okay? If we don't do what's necessary to make that stand now and get called mean names and maybe lose your job or maybe lose whatever, if you're not willing to make those sacrifices, way worse things are in store for our children and grandchildren. Way worse things than mean names. And if mean names is all it takes to stop you, you will be ineffective, and way worse things are coming for your children and grandchildren. And so that's kind of my bottom line, is that we need to do whatever is necessary to save our nation. We whether it's popular or not, whether it's politically correct or not, any of those things, we need to do whatever is necessary. And when you do that and you actually become increasingly effective, they will label you a fascist. And that's coming. And the point of labeling you a fascist is because it's okay to kill fascists. And if you get labeled a fascist, they'll kill you. See September 10th, 2025, Charlie Kirk. But that's my final thoughts. That's wrapping it up for the day. Thank you guys for tuning in, and maybe they'll invite me back. Maybe not. We'll see. Talk 995. We'll be back.